Section 6 of The Art of Cookery Made Plain and Easy by Hannah Glasse. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Chapter 2, Part 2. Made Dishes. From To Roast Turkey the Genteel Way. First cut it down the back, and with a sharp penknife bone it. Then make your forcemeat thus. Take a large fowl or a pound of veal, as much grated bread, half a pound of suet cut and beat very fine, a little beaten mace, 2 cloves, half a nutmeg grated, about a large teaspoonful of lemon peel, and the yolks of 2 eggs. Mix all together with a little pepper and salt. Fill up the places where the bones came out, and fill the body that it may look just as it did before. Sew up the back and roast it. You may have oyster sauce, celery sauce, or just as you please. Put good gravy in the dish, and garnish with lemon is as good as anything. Be sure to leave the pinions on. To stew a turkey or fowl. First let your pot be very clean. Lay 4 clean skewers at the bottom. Lay your turkey or fowl upon them. Put in a quart of gravy. Take a bunch of celery, cut it small, and wash it very clean. Put it into your pot, with 2 or 3 blades of mace. Let it stew softly till there is just enough for sauce. Then add a good piece of butter rolled in flour, 2 spoonfuls of red wine, 2 of ketchup, and just as much pepper and salt as will season it. Lay your fowl or turkey in the dish, pour the sauce over it, and send it to table. If the fowl or turkey is enough before the sauce, take it up, and keep it up till the sauce is boiled enough. Then put it in, let it boil a minute or 2, and dish it up. To stew a knuckle of veal. Be sure to let the pot or saucepan be very clean. Lay at the bottom 4 clean wooden skewers. Wash and clean the knuckle very well. Then lay it in the pot with 2 or 3 blades of mace, a little whole pepper, a little piece of thyme, a small onion, a crust of bread, and 2 quarts of water. Cover it down close, make it boil, then only let it simmer for 2 hours, and when it is enough, take it up. Lay it in a dish and strain the broth over it. Another way to stew a knuckle of veal. Clean it as before directed and boil it till there is just enough for sauce. Add 1 spoonful of ketchup, 1 of red wine, and 1 of walnut pickle, some truffles and morels, or some dried mushrooms cut small. Boil it all together, take up the knuckle, lay it in a dish, pour the sauce over it, and send it to table. Note, it eats very well done as the turkey before directed. To ragout a piece of beef. Take a large piece of the flank, which has fat at the top, cut square, or any piece that is all meat and has fat at the top, but no bones. The rump does well. Cut all nicely off the bone, which makes fine soup. Then take a large stew pan, and with a good piece of butter, fry it a little brown all over, flouring your meat well before you put it into the pan. Then pour in as much gravy as will cover it, made thus. Take about a pound of coarse beef, a little piece of veal cut small, a bundle of sweet herbs, an onion, some whole black pepper and white pepper, 2 or 3 large blades of mace, 4 or 5 cloves, a piece of carrot, a little piece of bacon, steeped in vinegar a little while, a crust of bread, toasted brown. Put to this a quart of white wine, and let it boil till half is wasted. While this is making, pour a quart of boiling water into the stew pan, cover it close, and let it be stewing softly. When the gravy is done, strain it, pour it into the pan where the beef is, take an ounce of truffles and morels cut small, some fresh or dried mushrooms cut small, 2 spoonfuls of ketchup, and cover it close. Let all this stew till the sauce is rich and thick. Then have ready some artichoke bottoms cut into 4, and a few pickled mushrooms. Give them a boil or 2, and when your meat is tender and your sauce quite rich, lay the meat into a dish and pour the sauce over it. You may add a sweetbread cut in 6 pieces, a palate stewed tender cut into little pieces, some coxcombs, and a few forcemeat balls. These are a great addition, but it will be good without. Note: for variety, when the beef is ready and the gravy put to it, add a large bunch of celery, cut small and washed clean, 2 spoonfuls of ketchup, and a glass of red wine. Omit all other ingredients. When the meat and celery are tender and the sauce rich and good, serve it up. It is also very good this way. Take 6 large cucumbers, scoop out the seeds, pare them, cut them into slices, and do them just as you do the celery. Beef Tremblin. Take the fat end of a brisket of beef and tie it up close with pack thread. Put it in a pot of water and boil it 6 hours very gently. Season the water with a little salt, a handful of allspice, 2 onions, 2 turnips, and a carrot. In the meanwhile, put a piece of butter in a stew pan and melt it, then put in 2 spoonfuls of flour and stir it till it is smooth. Put in a quart of gravy, a spoonful of ketchup, the same of browning, a gill of white wine, carrots and turnips, and cut the same as for haricot of mutton. Stew them gently till the roots are tender, season with pepper and salt, skim all the fat clean off, put the beef in a dish and pour the sauce all over. Garnish with pickle of any sort, or make a sauce thus. Chop a handful of parsley, 1 onion, 4 pickled cucumbers, 1 walnut, and a gill of capers. Put them in a pint of good gravy and thicken it with a little butter rolled in flour, and season it with pepper and salt. Boil it up for 10 minutes, and then put over the beef, or you may put the beef in a dish and put greens and carrots round it. To force the inside of a sirloin of beef. Take a sharp knife and carefully lift up the fat of the inside. Take out all the meat close to the bone, chop it small, take a pound of suet and chop fine, about as many crumbs of bread, a little thyme and lemon peel, a little pepper and salt, half a nutmeg grated, and 2 shallots chopped fine. Mix and beat all very fine in a marble mortar, with a glass of red wine. Then put it into the same place, cover it with the skin and fat, skewer it down with fine skewers, and cover it with paper. Do not take the paper off till the meat is on the dish. Take a quarter of a pint of red wine, 2 shallots shred small, boil them and pour into the dish with the gravy which comes out of the meat. It eats well. Spit your meat before you take out the inside. Another way to force a sirloin. When it is quite roasted, take it up and lay it in the dish with the inside uppermost. With a sharp knife, lift up the skin, hack and cut the inside very fine. Shake a little pepper and salt over it with 2 shallots, cover it with the skin and send it to table. You may add red wine or vinegar, just as you like. Sirloin of beef on epigram. Roast a sirloin of beef, take it off the spit, then raise the skin carefully off, and cut the lean part of the beef out, but observe not to cut near the ends or sides. Hash the meat in the following manner. Cut it in pieces about as big as a crown piece. Put half a pint of gravy into a toss-pan, an onion chopped fine, 2 spoonfuls of ketchup, some pepper and salt, 6 small pickled cucumbers cut in thin slices, and the gravy that comes from the beef. a little butter rolled in flour, put the meat in and toss it up for 5 minutes. Put it on the sirloin and then put the skin over and send it to table. Garnish with horseradish. You may do the inside instead of the outside if you please. To force the inside of a rump of beef. You may do it just in the same manner, only lift up the outside skin, take the middle of the meat and do as before directed. Put it into the same place, and with fine skewers put it down close. A rolled rump of beef. Cut the meat all off the bone whole. Slit the inside down from top to bottom, but not through the skin. Spread it open, take the flesh of 2 fowls and beef suet, an equal quantity, and as much cold boiled ham if you have it, a little pepper, an anchovy, a nutmeg grated, a little thyme, a good deal of parsley, a few mushrooms, and chop them all together. Beat them in a mortar with a half-pint basin full of crumbs of bread. Mix all these together with 4 yolks of eggs. Lay it into the meat, cover it up, and roll it round. Stick 1 skewer in and tie it with a pack thread cross and cross to hold it together. Take a pot or large saucepan that will just hold it. Lay a layer of bacon and a layer of beef cut in thin slices, a piece of carrot, some whole pepper, mace, sweet herbs, and a large onion. Lay the rolled beef on it, just put water enough to cover the top of the beef, cover it close, and let it stew very softly on a slow fire for 8 or 10 hours, but not too fast. When you find the beef tender, which you will know by running a skewer into the meat, then take it up, cover it up hot, boil the gravy till it is good, then strain it off, and add some mushrooms chopped, some truffles and morels cut small, 2 spoonfuls of red or white wine, the yolks of 2 eggs, and a piece of butter rolled in flour. Boil it together, set the meat before the fire, baste it with butter, and throw crumbs of bread all over it. When the sauce is enough, lay the meat into the dish and pour the sauce over it. Take care the eggs do not curdle, or you may omit the eggs. To boil a rump of beef the French fashion. Take a rump of beef, boil it half an hour, take it up, lay it into a large deep pewter dish or stew pan. Cut 3 or 4 gashes in it all along the side. Rub the gashes with pepper and salt, and pour into the dish a pint of red wine, as much hot water, 2 or 3 large onions cut small, the hearts of 8 or 10 lettuces cut small, and a good piece of butter rolled in a little flour. Lay the fleshy part of the meat downwards, cover it close, let it stew 2 hours and a half over a charcoal fire or a very slow coal fire. Observe that the butcher chops the bones so close that the meat may lie as flat as it can in the dish. When it is enough, take the beef, lay it in the dish, and pour the sauce over it. Note, when you do it in a pewter dish, it is best done over a chafing dish of hot coals, with a bit or 2 of charcoal to keep it alive. Beef escarlot. Take a brisket of beef, half a pound of coarse sugar, 2 ounces of bay salt, 1 ounce of saltpetre, a pound of common salt, mix all together and rub the beef. Lay it in an earthen pan and turn it every day. It may lie a fortnight in the pickle. Then boil it and serve it up either with savoys, cabbage or greens, or peas pudding. Note, it eats much finer cold, cut into slices and sent to table. Beef à la daube. Take a rump and bone it, or a part of the leg of mutton piece, or a piece of the buttock. Cut some fat bacon, as long as the beef is thick, and about 1/4 inch square. Take 8 cloves, 4 blades of mace, a little allspice, and half a nutmeg beat very fine. Chop a good handful of parsley fine, some sweet herbs of all sorts chopped fine, and some pepper and salt. Roll the bacon in these, and then take a large larding pin or a small bladed knife and put the bacon through and through the beef with the larding pin or knife. When that is done, put it in a stew pan with brown gravy enough to cover it. Chop 3 blades of garlic very fine and put in some fresh mushrooms or champignons, 2 large onions and a carrot. Stew it gently for 6 hours. Then take the meat out, strain off the gravy and skim all the fat off. Put your meat and gravy into the pan again. Put a gill of white wine into the gravy, and if it wants seasoning, season with pepper and salt. Stew them gently for half an hour. Add some artichoke bottoms, truffles and morels, oysters, and a spoonful of vinegar. Put the meat in a soup dish and the sauce over it, or you may put turnips cut in round pieces, and carrots cut round, some small onions, and thicken the sauce. Then put the meat in and stew it gently for half an hour with a gill of white wine. Some like savoys or cabbage stewed and put into the sauce. To make beef à la mode. Take a small buttock or leg of mutton piece of beef, or a clod or a piece of buttock of beef, also 2 dozen of cloves, as much mace, and half an ounce of allspice beat fine. Chop a large handful of parsley and all sorts of sweet herbs fine. Cut fat bacon as for beef Alle Dog, and put it into the spice, etc., and into the beef the same. Put it into a pot and cover it with water. Chop 4 large onions very fine, and 6 cloves of garlic, 6 bay leaves, and a handful of champignons, or fresh mushrooms. Put all into the pot with a pint of porter or ale, and half a pint of red wine. Put in some pepper and salt, some cayenne pepper, a spoonful of vinegar, strew 3 handfuls of bread raspings, sifted fine, over all. Cover the pot close and stew it for 6 hours, or according to the size of the piece. If a large piece, 8 hours. Then take the beef out and put it in a deep dish and keep it hot over some boiling water. Strain the gravy through a sieve and pick out the champignons or mushrooms. Skim all the fat off clean, put it into your pot again and give it a boil up. If not seasoned enough, season it to your liking. Then put the gravy over your beef and send it to table hot. Or you may cut it in slices if you like it best, or put it to get cold, and cut it in slices with the gravy over it, for when the gravy is cold, it will be in a strong jelly. Beef à la mode in pieces. You must take a buttock of beef, cut it into 2-pound pieces, lard them with bacon, fry them brown, put them into a pot that will just hold them, put in 2 quarts of broth or gravy, a few sweet herbs, an onion, some mace, cloves, nutmeg, pepper and salt. When that is done, cover it close and stew it till it is tender. Skim off all the fat, lay the meat in the dish, and strain the sauce over it. You may serve it up hot or cold. Beef olives. Take a rump of beef, cut it into steaks of half an inch thick, cut them as square as you can, and about 10 inches long. Cut a piece of fat bacon as wide as the beef and about 3 parts as long. Put some yolk of an egg on the beef, put the bacon on it and the yolk of an egg on the bacon, and some good savoury forcemeat on that. Some yolk of an egg on the forcemeat, then roll them up and tie them round with a string in 2 places. Put some yolk of an egg on them and some crumbs of bread. Then fry them brown in a large pan of good beef dripping. Take them out and put them to drain. Take some butter and put into a stew pan, melt it and put in a spoonful of flour, stir it well till it is smooth, then put a pint of good gravy in and a gill of white wine. Put in the olives and stew them for an hour. Add some mushrooms, truffles and morels, forcemeat balls and sweetbreads cut in small square pieces, some ox palates. Season with pepper and salt and squeeze the juice of half a lemon. Toss them up. Be careful to skim all the fat off, then put them in your dish. Garnish with beetroot and lemon. Veal olives. Cut them out of a leg of veal and do them the same as beef olives, with the same sauce and garnish. Or thus. Cut some slices of a leg of veal, about 3 inches long and 2 broad. Cut them thin, spread them on the table and hack them with the back of a knife. Put some yolk of egg over them and some savoury forcemeat on the egg as thick as the veal. Then some yolk of egg over it. Roll them up tight and tie them with a string. Rub them all over with yolk of egg and strew breadcrumbs over them. Have ready a pan of boiling fat. Fry them of a gold colour. Put them before the fire to drain. Have ready the following ragout. Put about 2 ounces of butter in your stew pan and melt it. Put a spoonful of flour and stir it about till it is small. Put a pint of gravy, a glass of white wine, some pepper and salt, a little cloves and mace, a little ham or lean bacon cut fine, 2 shallots cut fine, and half a lemon. Stew them gently for 10 minutes, strain it through a sieve, skim off the fat, and put it into your pan again. Add a sweetbread cut in pieces, artichoke bottoms cut in pieces, some forcemeat balls, a few truffles and morels, and mushrooms, a spoonful of ketchup. Give them a boil up. Put your olives in the dish and pour the ragout over them. Garnish with lemon. Beef collops. Take some rump steaks or any tender piece, cut like Scotch collops, only larger. Hack them a little with a knife and flour them. Put a little butter in a stew pan and melt it. Then put in your collops and fry them quick for about 2 minutes. Put in a pint of gravy, a little butter rolled in flour, season with pepper and salt. Cut 4 pickled cucumbers in thin slices, half a walnut and a few capers, a little onion, shred fine. Stew them 5 minutes, then put them into a hot dish and send them to table. You may put half a glass of white wine into it. To stew beef steaks. Take rump steaks, pepper and salt them, lay them in a stew pan, pour in half a pint of water, a blade or 2 of mace, 2 or 3 cloves, a little bundle of sweet herbs, an anchovy, a piece of butter rolled in flour, a glass of white wine, and an onion. Cover them close and let them stew softly till they are tender. Then take out the steaks, flour them, fry them in fresh butter, and pour away all the fat. Strain the sauce they were stewed in and pour it into the pan. Toss it all up together till the sauce is quite hot and thick. If you add 1/4 pint of oysters, it will make it the better. Lay the steaks into the dish and pour the sauce over them. Garnish with any pickle you like. To fry beef steaks. Take rump steaks, pepper and salt them, fry them in a little butter very quick and brown. Take them out and put them into a dish. Pour the fat out of the frying pan and then take half a pint of hot gravy. If no gravy, half a pint of hot water and put into the pan, and a little butter rolled in flour, a little pepper and salt, and 2 or 3 shallots chopped fine. Boil them up in your pan for 2 minutes, then put it over the steaks and send them to table. A second way to fry beef steaks. Cut the lean by itself and beat them well with the back of a knife. Fry them in just as much butter as will moisten the pan. Pour out the gravy as it runs out of the meat. Turn them often, do them over a gentle fire, then fry the fat by itself and lay upon the meat, and put to the gravy a glass of red wine, half an anchovy, a little nutmeg, a little beaten pepper, and a shallot cut small. Give it 2 or 3 little boils, season it with salt to your palate, pour it over the steaks, and send them to table. A pretty side dish of beef. Roast a tender piece of beef, lay fat bacon all over it, and roll it in paper, baste it, and when it is roasted, cut about 2 pounds in thin slices, lay them in a stew pan, and take 6 large cucumbers, peel them and chop them small, lay over them a little pepper and salt, and stew them in butter for about 10 minutes. Then drain out the butter and shake some flour over them. Toss them up, pour in half a pint of gravy, let them stew till they are thick, and dish them up. To dress a fillet of beef. It is the inside of a sirloin. You must carefully cut it all out from the bone, grate some nutmeg over it, a few crumbs of bread, a little pepper and salt, a little lemon peel, a little thyme, some parsley shred small, and roll it up tight. Tie it with a pack thread, roast it, put a quart of milk and 1/4 pound of butter into the dripping pan, and baste it. When it is enough, take it up, untie it, leave a little skewer in it to hold it together, have a little good gravy in the dish, and some sweet sauce in a cup. You may baste it with red wine and butter if you like it better, or it will do very well with butter only. Beef steaks rolled. Take 3 or 4 beef steaks, flat them with a cleaver, and make a forcemeat thus. Take 1 pound of veal beat fine in a mortar, the flesh of a large fowl cut small, half a pound of cold ham chopped small, the kidney fat of a loin of veal chopped small, a sweetbread cut in little pieces, an ounce of truffles and morels first stewed and then cut small, some parsley, the yolks of 4 eggs, a nutmeg grated, a very little thyme, a little lemon peel cut fine, a little pepper and salt, and half a pint of cream. Mix all together, lay it on your steaks, roll them up firm of a good size, and put a little skewer into them. Put them into the stew pan and fry them of a nice brown. Then pour all the fat out and put in a pint of good fried gravy, as in page 19. Put 1 spoonful of ketchup, 2 spoonfuls of red wine, a few mushrooms, and let them stew for half an hour. Take up the steaks, cut them in 2, lay the cut side uppermost, and pour the sauce over it. Garnish with lemon. Note: before you put the forcemeat into the beef, you are to stir it all together over a slow fire for 8 or 10 minutes. To stew a rump of beef. Having boiled it till it is little more than half enough, take it up and peel off the skin. Take salt, pepper, beaten mace, grated nutmeg, a handful of parsley, a little thyme, winter savoury, sweet marjoram, all chopped fine and mixed, and stuff them in great holes in the fat and lean. The rest spread over it, with the yolks of 2 eggs. Save the gravy that runs out. Put to it a pint of claret, and put the meat in a deep pan. Pour the liquor in, cover it close, and let it bake 2 hours. Then put it into the dish, strain the liquor through a sieve, and skim off the fat very clean. Then pour it over the meat, and send it to table. Another way to stew a rump of beef. You must cut the meat off the bone, lay it in your stew pan, cover it with half gravy and half water. Put in a spoonful of whole pepper, 2 onions, a bundle of sweet herbs, some salt, and a pint of red wine. Cover it close, set it over a stove or slow fire for 4 hours, shaking it sometimes and turning it 4 or 5 times. Keep it stirring till dinner is ready. Take 10 or 12 turnips, cut them into slices the broad way, then cut them into 4, flour them and fry them brown in beef dripping. Be sure to let your dripping boil before you put them in. Then drain them well from the fat, lay the beef in your soup dish, toast a little bread very nice and brown, cut in 3-corner dice, lay them into the dish, and the turnips likewise. Skim the fat off clean, strain in the gravy, and send it to table. If you have the convenience of a stove, put the dish over it for 5 or 6 minutes. It gives the liquor a fine flavour of the turnips, makes the bread eat better, and is a great addition. Season it with pepper and salt to your palate. Portugal Beef. Take a rump of beef, cut it off the bone, cut it across, flour it, fry the thin part brown in butter, the thick end stuffed with suet, boiled chestnuts, an anchovy, an onion, and a little pepper. Stew it in a pan of strong broth, and when it is tender, lay both the fried and stewed together in your dish. Cut the fried in two and lay on each side of the stewed. Strain the gravy it was stewed in, put to it some pickled gherkins chopped and boiled chestnuts. Thicken it with a piece of butter rolled in flour, a spoonful of browning, give it 2 or 3 boils up, season it with salt to your palate, and pour it over the beef. Garnish with lemon. End of section 6.